Crime for the Books is the third Jane Doe mystery novel by author Kate Young. The Jane Doe Book Club is throwing a bash. Set in the 1950s and held at the Magnolia Manor Bed and Breakfast, it's all anyone can talk about and scheduled to be the jewel of the Sweet Mountain season. The girls have merged with another book club, increasing their membership and activities. In this book, Layla and the ladies, including Gran, are putting on the dog and hosting a murder mystery party. As usual, it's all about finding a murderer and good friendship. There are 47 chapters in this book, and I will preview a few. Enjoy! The clouds look ominous as I walked our client out the office and locked the door. An inconspicuous glance at my watch informed me of the late hour. I needed to get to the library ASAP. I turned with a smile, extending my hand. The older woman's brow wrinkled with the stress of her situation, and a tad of guilt overtook me. Relax. We have everything in hand, and I assure you, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. The case is straightforward. The will is solid. Elaine took my hand and gave me a slight smile. Thank you. Your grandmother nearly twisted my arm when we were at the beauty parlor last month. She insisted you would be able to make sense of this mess and put my mind at ease. And she was right. You've been a godsend. Not that I would go around touting Daisy Moody saved me, the older woman chuckled. It goes straight to her head. I grinned. Wise. Gran's ego is large enough. And I know how convincing she can be when she puts her mind to something. She means well, and in this instance, I am glad she pushed you my way. The woman shook her head with a bemused fashion. Me too, and I know how Daisy is. I was only teasing. She has a heart of gold. She glanced at her watch. I appreciate you waiting for me to get this check to you. I know I'm old-fashioned, but I still like to use my checks and hand deliver them when feasible. I understand, and we're glad to accommodate whatever method of payment our clients feel comfortable with. I'd been a little surprised when she insisted on the paper transaction. We'd not once had a client pay by check in all the years I'd worked for my uncle. Personally, I didn't even own any checks. Never seen the need for them. I do appreciate it. She took a step off the curb just as an old gray Mustang came roaring down the street. Elaine! I reached out and grabbed her arm, jerking her back onto the sidewalk, seconds before the car nearly hit her. Maniac! I shouted at the driver, who flew over the train tracks like a bat out of hell. Several other pedestrians jumped out of the way. A man threw his hands in the air and shouted as the woman next to him began snapping pictures of the car with her phone. Good. Are you okay? Elaine looked a little dazed as she patted her damp forehead. Then she let out a little nervous chuckle. Yes, wow! My life flashed before my eyes. Her hand went to her chest and rested on her heart, which was probably pounding and definitely causing me some worry. I thought gridlock in the city was bad on my way here, but at least I didn't nearly get mowed down by some lunatic. She took a deep breath, and another little giggle escaped her lips. Her reaction reminded me of my friend Melanie. She always laughed when something frightened her, too. Chapter 37. I rode with my windows down all the way to the coffee shop. I didn't care that it was cool, or that my hair would suffer. I needed to air out my sinuses and myself. I wasn't sure if it was possible to pick up odors on clothing in that sort of a short time. Still, I wouldn't be taking any chances. I picked up Rosa's favorites and was soon en route to her house. I needed to sit down and have a face to face conversation with her. I had no intention of going against Quinn's explicit instructions, but like it or not, this case was personal, and lives were at stake. I would not be able to live with myself if I didn't do everything in my power to keep my friend safe. The portrayal Judy had painted wasn't the woman I was familiar with, and now that we knew our Jane Doe had been at the party, things made more sense. The Rosa I knew would never fly off the handle to that magnitude. It still didn't account for her behaving erratically after Patricia's murder, or the way she had arrested Elaine without covering all her bases first. I couldn't imagine how she thought. Imagine how she could think going off half-cocked after an old woman with an exceptional record would work out. A woman who never even had a speeding ticket. It made no sense. And then the press conference. I still couldn't get my head wrapped around the idiotic move. I had this deep sinking dread that I was missing a critical piece of information. I'd called Brad to see where things were and update him on my visit to the medical examiner. He'd pulled a few strings to get a rush on the forensics, and they had managed to get prints off the flyers. He was currently waiting in the lab. I could picture him, lording himself over the text with that scary face of his. No one could stand silently and strike fear in hearts like GBI Brad Jones. I had loved that about him. Had? I'd been pondering Brad and me when Melanie called. Hey you okay? Fine, why? I took a left on DuPont Street. I'm waiting for you at Maria's. Texas fajitas for two and margaritas, ring any bells? I stopped at a red light. Both my hands went to my mouth. Oh, Mel, I am so sorry. I've had such a day. I completely forgot. At the mention of Mexican food, my stomach growled. I'd forgotten to eat. I'm listening. I told her about my day, minus the evidence, and gave her a condensed version of my conversation with Judy. What? Melanie sounded incensed. She has to be lying. There is no way Rosa would keep that from us. I don't know. I stopped at a stop sign and waited for a jogger to cross the street. With all we've shared over the last year or so, nuh-uh, no way. She'd know that I'd commiserate with her. She and I are super close. Melanie's voice trailed off. Or at least I thought we were. I'm going to get to the bottom of all of this. And if it's true, Rosa can't hide it from us forever. And if something is going on, we need to know about it. You're right. Want me to meet you over there? I turned onto Rosa's dead-end street. No, let me go at this professionally first. Maybe she'll be more open. She knows I'm working for the police department, and she has to be stressing about her job. Okay, you take a run at her, asked Lila, the PI. And if that doesn't work, call in the big dog. Big dog? I pulled into Rosa's driveway, and it occurred to me that we never really visited her. She hadn't offered to host us for dinner or an impromptu club meeting. I'd been here only one other time. She'd always come to Mel's, Amelia's, or my house. Yeah, me. I could hear Melanie smiling at the other end of the line. I smiled. Deal. You got this. Love you. Thanks. Love you too. I shut off the engine and stared at the late 70s brick ranch with its attached two-carport garage. A large oak on the left side of the driveway had probably been planted as a shade tree when the house was being constructed. The roots had grown under the concrete, causing little fault-like cracks close to the carport entrance. All the backyards on the street were sectioned off by chain-link fences. A miniature pincher in the neighboring yard barked as I exited the car. The dog was around my feet, growling so loudly his tiny body vibrated. Hey there, little fellow. I'm friendly, I said in an attempt to placate the little creature protecting his territory. But he would not be consoled by the likes of me. The snarling and yapping continued. Sugar? Sugar! Get back here! An older woman did her best to hurry over to where her dog had me pinned against the car. I felt ridiculous. The dog couldn't have weighed more than 10 pounds. I'm so sorry. She scooped up the little dog and stroked his forehead. The motion seemed to somewhat soothe the animal, who still baring his teeth in my direction. That's okay, I smiled, thankful to be safe from a fate of lacerated ankles. Hey, the lady squinted. I saw you on the news the other morning. You're James and Frances Moody's girl, aren't you? Yes, ma'am. She nodded, still stroking the dog. I thought so. Those long legs and copper hair of yours are a dead giveaway. Moody through and through you are. Your father certainly can't deny you. Thank you, I guess. What an odd thing for her to say. Why would he want to deny me? Oh, I got her point then. No, he wouldn't get away with that one. She chuckled heartily. I'm just teasing you. Your mother and grandmother are good people. Your mama is something else. She does a lot of work with the ladies' shelter I volunteer at. Thank you. I'll tell Mother and Gran that you said so. She hadn't given me her name, and I felt it rude to ask at this point in the conversation. She certainly was familiar with my family and me. You're a friend of Rosa's. Upon my nod, she said, Poor thing has had a hard time. People think she's bulletproof. She cast a glance over her shoulder toward Rosa's house. She isn't. Under the tough exterior, she's as soft as a marshmallow. I hear her crying out back some nights. Bless her heart. She leaned a little closer and whispered, She likes to have a cigarette when she's stressed. Not that I'm judging. Of course not. I glanced over at the woman's yard. It wouldn't be difficult for her to overhear Rosa. The cypress trees against her fence, creating a barrier, had seen better days. Several were brown, and the lower limbs sparse looking, though she would have to intentionally be eavesdropping. She doesn't eat properly either. Tons of pizza and takeout food. The delivery drivers come and go. I see them. Sometimes I take her over a plate of vegetables. I worry for her. That's so kind of you. I'm sure Rosa feels lucky to have a neighbor like you. It's wonderful to know that she has someone close by to look out for her.